Welcome to Sock Radio and Spirit Weavers. Join us as Jody White Wolf Morrison shares with us her knowledge, abilities, teaching us how it's done, right here on Sock Radio. Brought to you by spiritualistonline.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. You are most cordially welcomed to Spirit Weavers on Sock Radio. And I'm your host, Jody White Wolf Morrison. And I am delighted to have you all with us today, whether you're listening in the Sock Radio chat room, on Sock Radio, on TuneIn, or whatever other way you have called in. It's great to have you with us. You know, Spirit Weavers is all about introducing you to people who live their spirituality and getting to know a little more about how that happens. I have a very special guest here today whose philosophy matches mine in such a powerful way. She says that she's a firm believer in turning your passion into your profession, and because your passion is your purpose. And that has been a big piece of what has motivated my guest today. And so I'd like to introduce you to DANIELLE Vespo. And let's see, her other name is Celestial Divinity, which says a whole lot. DANIELLE, say hi to everybody and we'll take it from there.
Hello, everybody. And thank you for having me on here, Jody.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's an honor to be here with you today.
Oh, thanks. I actually met DANIELLE. We were both panelists on a summit maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that. And I was really taken with DANIELLE's energy. So DANIELLE, would you share a little bit about you and who you are?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. I've always studied different world religions my whole life, basically. I was raised in Catholic school, but then when I was a teenager, I started studying all different types of things like Native American ways and just different diversity in theologies and philosophy. And I started looking into astrology, and for some reason it just struck me right away, and I knew that there was more truth in that for me than any other one thing. I thought that everything else had a piece of it, but astrology was what I needed to really dive into. And so I started studying life through astrology. I had this book called The Secret Language of Birthdays, and I carried it around with me since 1999 and showed it to everybody that I met and went over their birthday with them. And anybody who wanted to take the time to read it, I let them read it and put whatever they wanted on their day. And
Ooh.
Yeah, so I've still got the book. I had to get it rebound because it fell into pieces after the first 2 years. But yeah, now it has a 100-year warranty. And I've already had to take it to the book hospital once.
Oh my.
But yeah, so and by studying this, I just started going deeper and deeper and deeper into it and noticing patterns and connections between people and studying the charts and seeing, connections between my chart with people that would cross my path and even other people with each other. And I've also always been a free spirit, and my mother was very empowering to let me live life on my terms. And she always supported me in whatever I wanted to do. So I traveled a lot in my 20s, different rainbow gatherings, and just, lived a free-spirited lifestyle for a long time, and just lived by the guidance of spirit. And I've tried to live that way ever since, basically. Just try and stay in the moment as much as possible.
When you were growing up, did you have an awareness that there was something larger than you that maybe now we might call spirit? How did that come to you?
Well, I think it started when I was in Catholic school. I actually wanted to be a nun when I grew up.
Ah.
It was like something within me always knew that I had a spiritual calling and a very important purpose here on this earth. And but then, as I got older and moved away from Catholicism and found out that there was, there's more than just that religion. That was just what I was raised with. So that was what living spiritually looked like to me as a child,
That's fascinating. When I was in my teens, I grew up in a Jewish household, and I wanted to be a rabbi. Then as I got older and, like you, studied different religions, I wanted to be a nun. Again, having that sense of having a spiritual calling, but not really knowing at age 13, 15, whatever, how to define that.
Yeah.
There's a question for you in the chat room, Danielle. Janet asks, have you found that most religions are the same, sort of like different stories, same stories, but different names, that kind of thing?
I have to a certain degree, but I think that each of them have a different core message. And I think that like the real truth, or not truth, but the way to see it is to integrate all of them, like the core message of all of them. Like Buddhism teaches for you to go inside yourself, you know what I mean, and meditate. Christianity teaches you to open your heart, the heart is all about the heart chakra. Just different, like the Native American traditions really teach you to honor the earth and realize that you're a part of everything and one with nature and all the rocks and trees, and so it's really just integrating all of them. And there's a term for it called syncretism, which is, Santos Bonacci has a lot of videos about that on YouTube. It's called syncretism, where you take all of the ancient world religions and synchronize them together.
You said something that you had written to me that seems to follow this. You were talking about, you were fascinated by how accurately planetary cycles sort of pull everything together.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a little bit of what you're talking about?
Yeah. One thing, that a lot of the ancient religions and philosophies do go back to is the stars and astrology. And so from my own personal research with it, the timing of events in my life has perfectly lined up with, the planetary transits that I'm experiencing. Or when I meet somebody very important, I notice that both of us have something aligned with something in the sky in the moment, and just when I've studied my past, I've studied a lot of my past, really. I've studied a lot of trauma that I've experienced, as well as amazing times. you know, to
Uh-huh.
see where the planets were at, you know, and what was going on. And from the understanding that I have now of what the energies represent, it was all in alignment with the transits I was experiencing at that time, you know. So, so that really helped bring me to a lot of healing. It really helped me heal a lot of my past traumas and things of that nature, because I saw I saw, you know, on a chart, you know, that it was all divinely orchestrated the way that it was, you know.
So that brings up a question for me.
Hmm.
When we incarnate on the earth, are we kind of, you know, we come in and our planets and the different houses and so on, that's sort of a if you'll forgive the use of this word, a fixed thing. You know, we come
Hmm.
in and that's not changeable. I was born January 1st, and, you know, I can't pretend I was born July 38th or whatever. But what I wonder is, are we kind of trapped or stuck in what the planets tell us? If you were to look at my chart for, say, tomorrow, or look at my life chart, do I have any options within that?
Oh, absolutely. Um, well, see, I believe that we come into this world and take our first breath when the universe aligns with our soul's purpose. And for example, I was supposed to be born 5 weeks later than I was actually born. So I was born, but I'm totally in alignment with my chart. However, I think that every configuration, every chart, every aspect, every planet in each sign, each house, it has a lower expression of that energy and a higher expression of that energy.
Hmm.
And, you know, so people could be stuck living in the lower expression, or they could evolve as a soul and live more towards the higher expression of the different energies. And, and I think that, and also there's the progress charts, which is the progression of the soul, um, which is more kind of what your chart is now as a soul.
Uh-huh.
You still have your original birth chart, and see, the way it was explained to me that made the most sense was, when we go from being a water breathing creature in our mother's belly to coming out and breathing air. The first time we breathe air, it activates our brain, and
Oh.
we're breathing in all of the energy of that time and place in that moment. And it's kind of like a stamp, like an energetic stamp. And that's what the birth chart is. And
Ah.
so, yeah. And so as you live and your soul progresses through time, your soul progresses as well. Like, I was born as a Libra, which I'm still a Libra, but on my progress chart, I've progressed into being a Scorpio now. So it's like your soul progresses 1 degree every year. Your sun moves 1 degree every year in the progress chart. Um,
And how does our free will enter into this?
our free will,
Yeah.
I would say it enters in how how we're using the expression of that energy. Like, we have a choice to either, you know, revert into the lower expression or use it, you know, in a higher expression. Um,
And go
and
ahead.
like, we have a choice in how much we want to get to know ourselves and um, make decisions based on you know, living spiritually or not. I don't
What
know
how
if that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
Very much so. And so that brings me to how you would define the spiritual or spirit living spiritually seem to be open to a lot of different definitions, and different people see that different ways. How do you see that? What does that mean to you?
For me, it means being true to myself and authentic all the time, always. And for me, that means being respectful to people,
Okay.
respecting the earth, honoring the earth, praying, always expressing gratitude, whether it's in my head or it's out loud, it doesn't matter,
Uh-huh.
but just always being in communication with spirit or, you know, my higher self. Really working on tuning into my intuition and trying to make heart-based decisions. And it means there's so much that it means to me. It's like it's doing the right thing. It's doing what you know is right even when nobody's watching. You know,
Yeah.
it's really taking care of your thoughts, you know, and not just thinking whatever, letting your thoughts go wild, because, you know, your thoughts create reality. And, you know, you have to, like, you can't slack. I don't know. It's like I've really had to have a lot of discipline with my thoughts. And I stopped watching TV altogether because I didn't want to pollute my brain. And you know, I think that when I really started on my spiritual path, one of the biggest things was disciplining my thoughts, you know, and really trying to work through things and try not to worry and try not to think negative things, and gratitude. Gratitude is the most important thing, I think.
So how do you discipline your thoughts? I think a lot of our listeners, you know, would 100% agree with you, but you know, there's that funny old saying about the devil is in the details.
Oh.
So how how do you? I hate that phrase actually, but because and anyway, how do you actually go about disciplining your own thoughts? What do you do?
Well, let's see. One big thing that I've noticed that I've done is music. Music has helped me in so many ways be mantras for positive change in my life. Um, I found that when I've listened to music that was angry or depressing or sad or something like that, then it was just putting me back at that low vibration of being angry or sad or whatever. But if I listen to music that, like a good example of music that really helped me was Nako and Medicine for the People.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but their music was really mantras for positive change in my life. And then there's a lot of other music that is part of that medicine tribe genre, where they use music as medicine. And another thing that I did was I journal, and I would really try not to. I would try not to complain. Like I would try to see the good even in the worst situations. Like instead of I would try to rewrite my story that I tell myself. You know, like
Uh-huh.
like uh, like if something, I've experienced a lot of upheavals in life and, bad or whatever bad experiences some would say is bad. But then again, at the same time, it's like you got to see the good that comes from the bad. You have to really look and see what good has happened as a result of whatever it was,
Yeah.
and really try to find gratitude for every experience and really try to see the blessings in disguise and, you know, and try not to see anything as good or bad anyway, because it just is, and everything is just, what is, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's like,
Are you saying
I,
that things exist and they take their meaning from how we think about them?
yeah, it's
So
all
if,
about our perspective. Yeah.
uh-huh.
I would say that a lot of disciplining my thoughts was shifting my perspective, you know,
Okay.
just of how I see the world, and and how I see people, and um, you know, just really listening to people too. Just
There's that old saying about you have one mouth and two ears, and there's a reason for that.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
should be listening twice as much as we speak.
right, yeah.
You mentioned music as being really important, and I know that you're a drummer. What kind of drumming do you do?
I play a djembe. Um,
Oh,
I My friend plays a Native American flute, and I play my drum with him sometimes with his Flutopia. And I like to go to drum circles and sit in with different bands. But I really like going out to the woods and just playing too by myself, uh,
yeah.
or to the beach or whatever. But I love it. It's so healing to just play the drum. It's like when I'm in a drum circle, it's like the drum represents the heartbeat, and everybody's heartbeats are one in the drum circle. It's a spiritual experience.
Yes. I was just going to say that the native perspective, at least for many nations, is that the drum is the heartbeat of the Mother Earth, and that we resonate with that, and that's why we're drawn to drums. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
also you also said that you're an artist. What kind of art do you do?
I do. I make jewelry. I make fine hemp jewelry for one, and I also like to draw and paint. And I'm going to start making birth chart art. That's going to be
Ooh,
my next thing. I'm going to start making art like that people can hang on their walls, made out of their personal birth chart. Or if they're married, I could do like a synastry chart, which is like the husband and wife chart, or even matched with the wedding day, like a tri-wheel
uh-huh.
chart, children's charts, just like art pieces of personalized charts. I'm going to
So
make up a
you,
bunch for the eclipse too.
oh, so
Yeah.
would you actually take the chart on paper and cut the paper up and use that? Or is it more representational? How does that work?
I would either draw it or paint it um, onto canvas or paper, or I would actually draw it out in an artistic way. I wouldn't just cut it out. I would
So
draw
you're,
the chart onto,
oh, I see. I
yeah.
see.
and then make it artistic.
And then color must come into that as well then.
Yeah, and I would draw the planets and put everything on there like that.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Something that
Yeah.
people could physically look at as well as experience in their moment to moment living.
Yeah, because I look at a chart like it's the blueprint of the soul. It's a snapshot of a moment, you know. The different lines just represent how all the planets are aspecting with each other. And, it's just very personal. It's probably the most personalized art piece a person could get.
Sounds that way. You know, you used the word before that we hear a lot from astrologers, but I also know that a lot of people don't know what it means. What is a transit?
A transit is where the planets are right now, because the planets are always moving. And so let's say Jupiter, for example, is transiting my sun right now because Jupiter is in the same place where my sun is in my chart. Jupiter's going to keep moving, but right now it's right there, so it's transiting it because it's the same place in the sky as basically transit just talks about the planets that are in the sky right now.
Okay.
You know, like it'll say, you know, Mercury transit Jupiter or Jupiter transit. It's like the planet that's in the sky is transiting whatever planet in the birth chart, you know.
So could you say crossing it?
You could.
Okay.
You could say crossing.
Okay.
Also, transit isn't always just crossing. It could also be trining or sextiling or aspecting in a different way. But
Okay. So
when they're talking about transits, they're just talking about the planets in the sky as opposed to the ones in the chart, in the birth chart.
okay. So what do you do when you find that there is a transit that, according to your chart, looks like it could bring some pretty intense energy? How do you deal with that?
Well, awareness is the first step, right?
Okay.
So but awareness doesn't get you out of it. Uh, um, yeah, there's been times where it's like, okay, this looks like, yeah, okay, I'll be okay, and then no, boom, you know, stuff comes out of the blue. I just deal with it, but honestly, it makes tough times easier because you kind of forewarned is forearmed, you know. Um,
And I would imagine that the house that all that happens in helps you focus. For instance, I don't know enough to tell you which house it is, but you'd know. Say the house of money, and if it looks like there could be some intense energy happening, would that then help you focus more on your financial world?
yeah, or a lot of times what I do when I'm experiencing difficult transits, like I'm aware of the energies that I'm experiencing, so I'm not too hard on myself. But there's usually something good going on too, and I really try to emphasize on that energy, you know,
Okay.
because there's a lot of energies happening at one time, you know. Um,
Always.
yeah, so I try to um, you know, capitalize or focus more on the good things that are happening, even though they're all happening. Um, but having an awareness of difficult transits helps me get through them because I understand what energy I'm dealing with, what, you know, could result from this, and just know that it's all part of a divine plan. And also I can know when it's going to ease up too. So that helps. Because transits don't last forever.
I imagine that really would help because I don't know, the way I'm thinking of it at the moment, tell me if this is somewhat accurate.
Okay.
I'm thinking of it as a kind of like you were saying, a blueprint or a box or a building that you live within that gives you information about what's going on. So, for instance, if you have, this is an analogy, if you have leaky windows, and you know from your chart that there's a tremendous rainstorm coming, that might tell you to put buckets by where the leaks are.
Right.
Is it that kind of?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, it just helps you kind of prepare for things better, you know. Like if I see a difficult aspect that looks like a relationship could be breaking up, I won't be surprised if a relationship breaks up or something like that, you know, and just move forward. Helps you move forward easier.
Can you circumvent it? If you see something that looks like a relationship, there might be issues in relationships. Can you change that, even though your chart says that's what's coming up?
I've tried, but sometimes I just have to accept, you know, what's happening too. So, I mean, I try, but I just accept life as it is.
I see.
You know?
Okay, so does it help you find, like we're talking about the more negative of what we would name negative, but does it also help you to define where your strengths are that you can then bring to bear on a particular situation?
Absolutely. And that's what I was saying with when you asked me about, you know, stressful transits. I try to draw upon the strengths of the good transits that I'm having, because you're always having something, you know, at any given time. And when I give readings, I like to emphasize, you know, what people's strengths are to help empower them to build upon those and, you know, bring awareness to challenges, you know, within their chart so they can recognize it as just being challenging and draw more upon the strengths and learn to integrate the two. So I think that yeah, it's always good to know. It's very empowering to know what your strengths are. You know, you're kind of like your superpowers, so to speak. And they show in the charts. They really do. It's like, you know, it really shows the individuality in everybody when I look at the chart.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, Danielle. We are going to come up on a break right here, but we have a wonderful question in the chat room, and that's what I think we will look forward to starting with right on the other side of the break.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
We are taking a break for messages from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere. Jody White Wolf Morrison will be right back with more from Spirit Weavers. Spirit Talk with Julie. Spirit's medium, Julie Simpson, and guests delve into the world of spirit, the faith and the way of life, renewing the movement that brought two worlds together and ancient spiritual beliefs to the forefront of society, proving once and for all there is nothing to fear in talking to spirit. Live in the SOC radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com, or simply listen in at tunein.com and search for SOC Radio. Join us on SOC Radio. Host your own online radio show. We welcome inquiries and ideas for your own show live right here on SOC Radio. Share your knowledge, thoughts and abilities. Bring your ideas to life with us here on SOC Radio and spiritualistonline.com. Or join any of our shows as a special guest, speaker or presenter. Check out the livelier spiritual chat show, the Spiritualist Open Circle Panel Forum, a monthly discussion show, or the Circle of Mediums, a weekly show sharing spirit messages and teaching all aspects of mediumship and psychic abilities. Or join our Christina on the monthly astrology show. Contact us now at socradioshows@gmail.com. SOC Radio aims to provide a wide range of hosts, shows, views and opinions while endeavouring to maintain our three vital principles of openness, honesty and integrity, covering all aspects of spiritualism, mediumship, healing, personal and spiritual development for all faiths, religions and walks of life as a way of life. As part of our spiritualistonline.com, Spiritualist Online Network and Lyceum, SOC Radio brings you the latest and honest news, views and names in the spiritual field. Check us out and tune in to SOC Radio on spiritualistonline.com. Join in the SOC Radio chat room on the website. Beyond the Veil with Terry Oz. Check it out first Monday, monthly, 2 p.m. UK time. Terry shares her experiences and love of spiritual communication with those from beyond the veil. Join us live in the SOC Radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com or simply listen in at tunein.com and search for SOC Radio. Spirit Weavers with Jody White Wolf Morrison, a weekly 1-hour radio show, Thursdays 8 p.m. UK time, featuring those who are dedicated to living their spirituality and exploring how that is woven into their everyday lives through their work, practices and beliefs. Various SOC members from Spiritualist Online Network and Lyceum sharing their abilities, knowledge and more. Dates and times will vary. Live in the SOC Radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com or simply listen in at tunein.com and search for SOC Radio. SOC Radio welcomes you back to Spirit Weavers with Jody White Wolf Morrison.
Welcome back, everybody, to Spirit Weavers. I'd like to say thank you to the folks in the chat room, to all of you who are listening in on SOC Radio, TuneIn, and other ways of tuning in. And we're with my guest today, Danielle Elise Vespo, who is an astrologer. And the question came up in the chat room. Evergreen asked if I have a Saturn transit that will continue in my 10th house, and I'll ask you about that, until January of 2018. What can I do right now to make it more navigatable, to be able to work with it better? First of all, what is the 10th house?
The 10th house is the house of career and destiny, and it is like the Capricorn house, and it's ruled by Saturn. So the best thing I could say about that would be to focus on your career. And if your career isn't what you feel like you're called to do here on this earth, then it's a good time to move towards making your life more in alignment with that. Saturn is like boundaries and restriction and limitations, but it's also discipline and responsibility, and Saturn rules over contracts and marriages and commitments. And Saturn actually rewards hard work and discipline. So with it being in your 10th house, I would say it's a really good time to focus on your career as much as possible for the rest of this year and get it into alignment with your purpose, because Saturn is on the galactic center and it's going to be crossing back over the galactic center. It's retrograde. It's going to be going direct again August 25th, I believe, right after the eclipse.
Okay.
So, so yeah, I would say.
What do you,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what if you feel like your career is in alignment with your kind of cosmic path or soul path, but it's just not coming together well?
Well,
is that a question of being patient, or I mean, how would you make sense of that?
I would say, well, the first thing that came to my mind is to put in more work, is to buckle down and really make sure that you're treating yourself like a job. Because oftentimes, sometimes we do, and I do it too, don't put enough time into my career and or things of that nature, and then it doesn't line up the way that it's supposed to. And it's really, that transition can be tough as well. And Saturn can also make you feel limited in the house that it's in. So Saturn could make you feel limited in your house of career. But I think that if you put in the hard work, that you'll see the rewards, especially by the time it's done with the transit.
Okay. So you wouldn't automatically say, oh, okay, my career isn't coming together the way I think it should. Maybe I need to switch careers. You might equally say, I guess what I need is maybe new approaches. If I really feel that my career path is in alignment with what I'm here to do, then maybe I need to work harder. Maybe I need to think outside the box and look to your strengths and how to apply your strengths to that issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. We have another kind of a question comment. And Janet says, I really know very little about astrology, but I heard that to do a correct chart, you need the time of birth. I don't have that. Does it throw the chart off much if you don't have the exact time of birth?
Yes. See, the time of birth mostly affects the ascendant and the houses, because in a day, it goes through every degree in the zodiac for the ascendant. So it takes 4 minutes. It moves 1 degree every 4 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And the ascendant is the Earth's horizon. And so that's the ascendant. It's the start of the chart. And that's kind of how the world sees you, is by your ascendant. And so I mean, you could still have a reading done, because most of the planets would still be in the same signs, and they would still be aspecting each other the same. The only thing that might move in a day is the moon will move some degrees, because it takes 2.5 days for the moon to move through a whole sign. But you won't know what houses anything is in, and you won't know the ascendant or the midheaven. So all of the houses would be off, but you would still know what, like, Saturn and Libra is, and if it's aspecting your Uranus and Aries or whatever it is, the planets in the signs and how they aspect each other. And you could still understand a lot just from that information, but you wouldn't have the houses.
So you'd still have all the planet and sign information, and you'd still get a lot out of it, but it just wouldn't be as complete.
Correct.
Okay, good.
And yeah, you would
ahead.
still be able to know, like if you wanted to do a transit reading and see what planets in the sky might be affecting your chart, it would still show that. It just wouldn't show the houses. Yeah.
Okay. And I would imagine that anybody who is paying attention to their life could, to some degree, figure out what houses are affected because, you just got $1,000 worth of bills you didn't expect, or suddenly things are rocky in your relationship, or you just got fired from a job that you thought you were going to be at forever. Those would give you information, wouldn't it, about the houses?
Yeah. Yeah, and there are formulas that some astrologers use to determine birth times based on, asking clients about their life and things like that.
I was just wondering about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even that, although it wouldn't be as specific, you could actually, with those formulas and those questions, you could narrow down to some degree approximate times of birth. Okay, that's really interesting. I wanted to ask you two more questions. The first is, I know there are different types of astrology. Are you a practitioner of a particular type?
No, I wouldn't say I am. I've studied several different types, just like several different religions, and it's all different ways of looking at it, at the same thing, Like I've studied evolutionary astrology, which is, basically the evolution of the soul, and I've studied personology, which is the secret language system, the secret language of birthdays and destiny. And I've studied regular, traditional Western astrology. I've studied Vedic astrology. I've looked at a lot of different types of astrology, and I don't like to label myself in any area of life. So I guess you could say I'm an oracular astrologer. That's what I put on my business card, because a lot of times what that means to me is when I'm looking at a chart, I will just be looking at the symbols and the lines and all the symbolism, and I channel the information through reading the symbols. And but the information that I have comes from different studies of different types of astrology. So I've even studied mythology, like the mythology, behind the planets and things like that,
So basically you have a big toolbox, and you use intuitively what is right in that one particular reading.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes great sense. Another question in the chat room. Have you ever looked at numerology? It's a lot closer to astrology than people may think. Have you had any experience with that?
Yeah, actually, I was studying numerology before I started studying astrology, and that was probably partly what got me into it. I'm not an expert in it, but I do understand a lot of the different meanings of the numbers, and I see patterns in numbers with the degrees and the planets in the charts, and And yeah, I think that I believe in syncretism when it comes to divinity as well. You know, I believe that the universe is trying to speak to us in many different ways. And
So whether
that
so
numerology
whether
is just as valid. Huh?
so whether it's numerology or astrology or whatever, they're just like different dialects of the same language.
Yeah, basically they're all, well, astrology is a little bit more like based on um actual positions of planets. You know, it's based on astronomy or whatever, and the numbers are numbers. But I do believe that there's many different ways of the universe communicating, for sure.
Okay. And I would imagine that with numerology and astrology, both of those, there's a very much of a thinking, a mental component to that,
Mm,
rather than
yeah.
a really a totally intuitive component. It's
Oh,
kind of like
yeah.
what I hear you saying is you need both. You need to
Yeah.
balance them.
Yeah, you need to do your homework and do your research and study as much as you can, and live it as much as you can. And like, um you know, for me, one way that, you know, life has been one of my best teachers, you know,
Uh-huh.
just understanding, asking, I've asked everybody their birthday that crosses my path, you know, so that helps me understand what kind of energies are crossing my life or coming into my life at any time, or just knowing where the planets are. And numerology is the same way, but there's many layers to all of these things. Even tarot has many layers to it.
Uh-huh.
And you really need to do your research and do your homework and understand what each thing means, but then you have to apply it to your life as well. And you have to, because life is really the best teacher. You know, you can study all these things in books, but until like you feel the transits, you know,
Uh-huh.
or you feel the synastry, by knowing the synastry and feeling these energies, that's
Uh-huh.
how you really learn, you know.
Yeah. I can appreciate that definitely. Before, okay, we're running a little low on time, and I did want to get to this. A number of people have asked me about this, and so I'm going to go to the expert, and that is the astrology of our pets. If I know when my cat was born, or my bird, or whatever, um, is astrology equally valid for animals?
Absolutely, absolutely. I had, I always knew the astrology of my cats, and you know, and I studied that, you know, when I had pets, and I studied their charts and all of that, and I completely believe so. And I've done synastry for people and their pets before as well too, you know. Um, Even one of my good friends, his dog has the same sun and moon as him. Like the synastry between him and his dog is out of this world. um, but yeah,
So
yeah.
if I came to you and I said, "Look, I'd like to get an animal, and I'm a Capricorn with this rising, et cetera," what would be the best what would be the best birth months for a pet for me? Is that a kind of question that people could ask?
Yeah, but I would say that it would go. Mm, see, I don't usually say this or that would be good or not good or whatever. It's more like I like to see how to, because I take everything into consideration. It's hard to say like, but if I had to say get something based on something, I would say your moon sign. I wouldn't go by you being a Capricorn. I would say get a pet, that is harmonious with your moon.
Okay. And that's
Yeah.
because the moon deals with emotions?
Yeah, it's your emotions and your subconscious, and I feel like you would have a strong bond with, a pet that you had a connection with, a moon connection with. Although this, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, although the sun, you don't want the sun to totally clash either, but
what would be some signs that would clash, or could? I wouldn't say would, but could clash.
Like with Capricorn?
Sure.
With Capricorn? Well,
maybe there aren't.
The first thing that came to my mind was Cancer, but just because it's opposite. But Libra and Gemini would both be squares to Capricorn, but I know Libras and Capricorns that get along. That's why I look at the whole thing. It's hard for me to say with one thing, because you could have a Libra and a Capricorn, and they might clash on some level, but then you could have other planets in your chart totally harmonious with each other.
I got you.
And so I take it all into consideration. So if somebody was thinking about getting a pet and they knew the birthday of the pet in question, I could look at that and see, if it was a good match. But it's hard for me to just say, black and white, what would be good and what wouldn't be.
Sure, and I imagine that's because although maybe my sun sign and my cat sun sign might not be harmonious, there might be other qualities that come because of where my planets are that would help us work through those areas of conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah. Comment in the chat room. My cat has the same birthday, different year, obviously, but the same birthday.
As you?
No, was a comment in the chat room from somebody.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Danielle, I've got a question for you because we are almost out of time, and I want to make sure that people know how they can reach you. What would be ways that if somebody wanted to connect with you, how could they do that?
I have a website that's www.astrologybydanielle.com. I also have celestialdivinity.com and Facebook pages for both as well, Astrology by Danielle and Celestial Divinity. Okay. And my phone number is 2244 Celeste for call or text. And
oh, that's clever.
Yeah. Yeah. So it spells out to 224-423-5378, but it's 2244 Celeste, so that's easy.
I like that.
And see, email is astrologybydanielle@gmail.com. I have a couple different emails. Pretty easy to get a hold of.
Excellent. And thank you.
Maybe we could put links to my stuff in the comments or something.
We sure could do that. Well, that's wonderful. Danielle, thank you so much for coming and sharing your interest and your passion for astrology, how you've come to it, and the way in which it influences your life. I've really enjoyed talking to you about this.
Oh, I've really enjoyed being on your show, Jody. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. I would like to encourage all of you who are listening out there in Radio Land to go to HTTP, the usual prefix there, and be spiritualists online I always call it a backslash. Everybody else calls it /RADSCHED, which is the shorthand for radio schedule. And if you go there, you can see all of the other SOC shows, SOC radio shows that are upcoming, covering a wide variety of topics. And I encourage you to come and play and enjoy them as much as I do. So once again, thank you, Danielle. This has been a pleasure. And just a comment from the chat room for you, Danielle, says, great session, very informative. So there's a little feedback for you. Thanks again, and we'll see you at Spirit Weavers, same time, same day, next week. Have a good one. May Spirit bless. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Jody White Wolf Morrison, Spirit Weavers on SOC Radio, brought to you by Spiritualists Online Network and Lyceum at spiritualistonline.com.